new gnomes up front at first.
Yeah, he gets the spotlight.
I could bring it up since we have a Bills gnome.
Mm.
So anyway, we got this. We got a new gnome, which someone suggested. We always seem to have new gnomes.
Well, apparently we need to keep getting new gnomes.
I keep an eye out for these things. You know, they're actually hard to find. They don't multiply much. Very difficult to find it. And I want one with arms and legs. So anyway, this is a Buffalo Bills gnome, and they just came up with a contract for Josh Allen, our quarterback.
Yeah.
They're giving him what, $40-some million a year for
It's
the
not
next
bad.
for the next 7 years. Wow, that's some good bling for throwing a football around. And here we are, humbly selling headphones for a living. I wish I knew how to play football. But anyway, today we're talking about making the perfect headphone for you. Or
Me?
you. Yeah, you.
Oh,
Only you.
okay.
I mean, it could be me if I was looking in a mirror, but it's you.
But what if you were me?
You.
Would I be you?
Like this. You.
No, probably not.
Yeah, I don't know.
Like so many topics, this one's a little trickier than it might seem. A lot of people initially coming from the outside seem to think you want a flat response. And we had a video on that one defining more or less exactly what a flat response is. It's a bit more complex than you might expect. It's not always so straightforward.
Yeah,
So,
I think the video is called What is Flat?
yeah. So that one's a little tricky too. You can't just be like, make a flat headphone, because there's a considerable amount of discussion that could occur on what that means.
Yeah,
And
that's for sure.
that doesn't necessarily mean that that's what the person wants.
Yeah.
The average person might think that they want that. They might think neutral is a good target. And yeah, probably is reasonable.
But the idea is here,
But
let's
what's
say,
the best?
what if you did want flat? Like, because we're making this for you
Yeah.
or you. So then now how would we determine what sound we would make for this headphone for you? How could we create a test to know what you would want?
Need to be like a hearing test, huh?
I mean, that might help. You know, you could always
Listen to
boost
this.
up where you're
Yeah,
weak.
Do you want more here or there?
That probably wouldn't be a bad start. Get a freak potty.
As a
ears.
reference, if you were doing it for one singular person,
Yeah.
I would probably start there. Just see what hearing damage do you have over the spectrum. You know, start across the sweep range. You would try to assess the threshold of hearing for this particular individual and try to characterize that. And then I guess you could design a headphone that in this place, in system, on their head, produces this frequency response.
Of whatever would be good for that hearing response, which we'd have to determine somewhere, because I don't know if anyone's ever done that. Did anyone take the hearing response of somebody?
Of a singular individual?
Yeah, and then decide what's good for, you know, what response the speaker or headphone should have to match that person? Probably not.
Some companies actually take into account your actual ear itself. You'll take a 3D scan or something like that, or a mold impression of your ear, and they will compute the head-related transfer function that your actual ear has, and they will come up with a preferential curve for you. I suppose the concern there is whether or not your flat that they compute is actually what you want, is actually the most preferential response, because it's very difficult to discern that. You would need to basically just hear all the different things and make a determination whether or not that's actually what you want, that flat that somebody else assumes is your most preferential response.
Yeah, it'd be tough to even create like test patterns or tones or stuff, because then you got to play that on something that plays it back in a way that you understand it compared relative to the person's ears.
Right.
that's well, I guess if you had a headphone that was a reference and you sent a kit to the man, said, okay, we know what this headphone does and we have experience with, you know, at some point you'll build a library, you'll start to learn what people, I guess that's what it would be boiled down to. You start somewhere.
Yeah, but now you're averaging, basically. Now you're determining what other people like.
I guess.
If you're making something for one person, I think the only way to go is to actually verify this person's actually measured response. You verify that their ear doesn't have unreasonable attenuation at one particular frequency range. You make sure that their degradation over time is within normal bounds first.
I mean, I don't know, if I gave you a headphone, a system, and said, and I don't know, let's say we have 5 tracks on there that we chose, right? And said, you listen to these, and then you make a specific questionnaire, say, answer these questions about what you hear. You think that would work?
No.
No? Like, you don't think there would be no way to match it up? Yeah.
Probably not.
Kind of like a dating service type thing, right? It's almost like that where you're saying, well, all right, obviously they come up with their own algorithms, right, to figure out how you're telling them your likes and dislikes, and they're matching up with people who they think are, it's kind of like that, I guess.
People aren't always very good at answering questions, though.
Well, that is an issue, yeah. Well, it's the same with the old school eye test exams. I always just say,
Yeah.
you go to an eye exam and a doctor asks you, what do you see? And they're like, well, how do you know you're seeing? How do you know the guy you're describing it the way he wants you to hear it? And then he gives you a script that's two times
Well,
off because you don't answer the question properly.
I don't know about
You
that far, but yeah, testing can be very difficult
Yeah.
because you're dealing with a human on the other end.
Yeah.
And if they don't really understand the questions, they could possibly give you results that are slightly skewed. Obviously, you could improve the testing to try to mitigate this, but I think there's limits on how good you could get. So I don't really know the best way to get close to perfect for a singular individual. All the tests, for the most part, what most people are focusing on and researching is the average response, what most people want to hear.
Right. Well, we've seen people do. We've seen companies make what they consider to be an average curve. There's a few of them out there, but they only work for 50-60% of the population, from what I've gathered.
Right, on average, it's
You
pretty
know?
good,
Yeah.
but it doesn't mean it's perfect for you.
But then that's the thing. How do we get it for you?
Well, it's the thing. Even if you do correct it for just you, you're used to hearing normal, everyday things without the correction. So to you, wouldn't that sound unnatural to you then?
I guess. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess you're correcting for the sound of the headphone, the whole playback chain, basically, all right, to your ears, and trying to make it sound to you like what is natural. But yeah, I mean, obviously everyone's trying to do that. But how do we make it as natural as possible to you or him? Or I don't know.
And then you also got to take into account time, because over time your preferences are pretty likely to change, and the way your ear actually responds might change. It's possible your inner anatomy might have small changes as well. So if you're looking for perfection, I think you're gonna have to frequently reassess what you want to hear, and it's very possible that you might want to hear different things as time evolves. You might want a different preferential curve as you get older. In fact, I think that's pretty likely.
Well, I
Your
know.
preferences will change.
I guess since we're talking about more of a physical change with the design of the headphone rather than because everyone's going to say, oh, why don't you just use EQ? Obviously, you can make it sound as any way you want, right there. It's automatic. And why we should bring up that we're discussing more about mechanically making a headphone that's angled a certain way, fits your head a certain way. Again, we talked about the transfer function with the ear where you take a shot of your picture of your ear. We see how it's shaped. We can adjust the acoustics and the cup size to fit you. So there's a lot of things other than just asking, I guess, that we could do physically to tailor a headphone for you.
I mean, it'd be like having a custom pair of shoes made for you, A guy measuring everything for you and fitting them for just you,
Yeah.
or a suit.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and I guess it's going to fit
It's
nice.
kind of like a 1266 with the adjustments. You can change it depending on your.
I guess that's
head
kind
size
of
and
where we're
everything.
rolling with this.
Yeah.
That's what the AB 1266 was designed for. You could adjust the acoustics for you. But rotate the ear pads, spread it out. It doesn't
Right.
have to clamp. So yeah, it's got a full range of adjustability for the acoustic, which is it's a physical adjustment you can make on it. Where everything else you're pretty much stuck. It sits on your head and that's the way it sits.
There's a few that you can change it.
Yeah, some. Yeah.
It's like a mechanical EQ, but it has, I think, more finite bounds than you would get with the typical EQ. And if you just throw EQ in front of someone, I think it's very difficult for them to come up with a very good EQ for them specifically. Most people find that to be very challenging. They fight over a trivial detail in one frequency band for an extended period of time, then come to figure out that they had it too high or too low all along. And doing this all the way across the board is very, very difficult.
Yeah.
Most people just don't really have the experience understanding what they really want to hear, because every change you make, it sounds different. But is it better?
Well, this would be more of an acoustic EQ.
Right.
Not and I mean, and even with that, I mean, it's more of a fine tune, but I mean, you are in some respects changing levels, because you can move the headphone more forward and bring out more of the female vocals. You're basically changing placement within the soundstage. You're changing where the imaging is within the soundstage, and for some people that's kind of cool.
I mean, it's kind of like moving speakers.
Right. Yeah, or moving in a room and the
Right.
speakers are situated.
Well, that too.
Sound better here or here. Yeah.
So I guess it just allows you to tune the thing to your preferences in place with a reasonable finite band of adjustment.
And I think
Makes it easier.
And I think, though, true, like you look at something like, you talk about transfer function or impulse response or however way you want to measure this thing. But bottom line is that you are picking up, relatively speaking, the sense of speed with the bass by changing the acoustic. I mean, there's a lot going on there when you move the source about your ear, because your brain's trying to localize and figure out where it's coming from, and so if you give the brain more information, it can figure it out easier. So it's kind of cool in that respect, but I guess not everyone's into imaging and soundstage,
Well, a lot of people don't really know what it is. They haven't had experience with it, so maybe it doesn't matter to them. That's very possible.
Right. It's true.
Really depends on your experience level. To some people, one particular detail is hypercritical, and to other people, they don't care at all. That's the trouble with coming up with something just for one person. It's very difficult. You need to figure out exactly what they want to hear and try to come up with the most favorable way to do it. But these things are actually very complicated.
Well, I mean, it's kind of like what you're used to, because like people talk about like imaging, like IEMs and stuff, and it's always like, man, it has such a wide sound stage, but then you hear it and you're like, well, this ain't like a full-size headphone kind of imaging.
Yeah.
So
It's
kinda
inside
comes
your ear
from,
canal.
what you're used to hearing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You almost need like a slider system or something. The My Choice headphone, you got like sliders for whatever, imaging, treble, bass, or whatever. And you could slide them around, and it gives you a certain amount of points or something.
I guess that would be the way
And
to
you
do
could
it.
move the points around between the different assets to figure out what you think is your preference.
Yeah, we need an app. You would need to create an app. That way the customer could download the app, and you probably have to send them a reference headphone to use, something that is a standard, and then do that and say, okay, here,
Relative to this reference,
right?
What would you like more or less of?
Yeah, and then throw out like a female vocal. Okay, and then have the software place that. Where would you like to hear her coming from in the soundstage? It'd be kind of cool, really, when you think about it. It wouldn't be hard to do. It wouldn't be that hard to do, really.
Or you build a room with like 37 speakers all the way around you to do that. You sit in the middle.
Yeah. Unfortunately, you got to like bring people to the room.
Yeah,
That's kind of tough. If you could bring the room to the people.
Well, okay, it's in the back of a tractor trailer.
Oh yeah.
You could do that.
That'd be pretty cool. Some people have rooms like that for. I don't know what the hell they use it for. I guess for measurements. Right. They're trying to create a diffuse field.
Yeah.
So they got speakers all around, and they can configure placement. So you need one of those. You need a booth with a lot of speakers, like you said, and that would be kind of cool, though. But then you got to be able to transfer that to the design of the headphone.
Yes.
Yeah.
You would need a very complex system in place.
Yeah.
Yeah. What would be interesting, I think, is to characterize one individual and somehow come up with a way to extrapolate into the future.
Ooh, AI.
What their preferences are going to be.
Yeah.
Right. I think it'd be very interesting to
AI.
see that. If you track one individual, you see how their hearing changes over time, see if there's any degradation, and see how the frequencies are impacted as they age. It could be that it's very much nonlinear or out of the expected range for one reason or another. And I'd also like to see how that compares to people in different parts of the globe, because there could be specific regions that have more degradation in a specific area of their hearing than others because of outside factors and whatnot. I think that'd be interesting.
Yeah.
But you need to calculate all these things.
That's
You
a
throw
lot of
it,
data.
feed into some AI,
Yeah.
and then out comes some sort of like, what would you call that? Some sort of like AI machine learning neuro hearing degradation.
The headphone could sense when
calculator.
you're really getting into the music.
It would be your baseline. That's where you start
this is
from.
the mathematical equation to compute your mechanical ability
Right.
of your ears. And then you could extrapolate going forward with high probability that you hit it dead on.
Yeah, they do that with
Every 6 months you get a new headphone.
Now. The thing,
Yeah.
little barn goes in and out of focus, and then it tells you what your prescription is.
Oh,
But they still check it, to make sure
Yeah.
it's like right. But that's like this is what it should be.
yeah.
We think.
And so
like
you
a
could do that with
best
imaging.
guess.
Yeah.
You could move it with imaging. You could create a vocal that's forward or backwards reference to the, how far
You could
away
make
it is.
these
from you.
tests,
Say,
yeah.
where would you like this vocal placed? And that's kind of the same thing. It's like that. We could probably go look at what these eye tests are doing, and it's similar, I guess.
I think for something like that, what you really need is data, though. You simply need a huge number of people to be able to train some sort of AI to determine whether or not this data is valid. Because I think you're going to have a high probability of people producing conflicting or invalid results.
Yeah, I
people
guess-
saying the wrong thing, and then to know with certainty that what they actually wanted was something else. Basically, you're taking the data they provide you and you're using that to interpret the results.
Yeah, right.
Right, that's what you would have to do.
It's
I think.
not really as idiot proof as an object coming into focus.
No.
Right.
Saying, okay, right there is good.
Yeah.
But you could use that for an acoustic perspective. I mean, you could.
Yeah, it would be some value.
Yeah, but you're right, but you're still got to figure out how to reproduce it the way they would like to hear it. But I don't. It probably wouldn't take a lot of data points though to figure that out.
More would be better though.
You know, I mean, I guess
hundreds, maybe
more
thousands.
would be better. Yeah, but I guess the real key would be to not try to adjust too many things. You know, like, okay, we got it. We got to
focus on one thing at a time.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, like one. Right,
Yeah.
right.
But eventually, the goal has to be to cover everything.
Yeah.
So basically, you say, where do you live? Where have you lived? How old are you? What's your experience in music? You plug
Yeah.
these things in. You have like basic sliders for your preferences. And then, oh, here we go. We have with 99% certainty, this is your preferred result.
I think if you supplied like a free app to people, I think you'd have a lot of feedback really quick. I think people would
Yeah.
love to do that as a test. You know, but again, you're dealing
You
with
gotta
all
know the whole
different
chain.
systems.
You would have to
Yeah,
have references.
That is a bit of an
You have to
issue.
be like
Yeah.
using
Yeah.
some sort of earbud that everyone
There might
has.
be a way to extrapolate from that, though. But yeah, it seems like it would be rather difficult.
Yeah.
'Cause
Everyone
you
has to use like stock Apple earbuds or
Yeah.
something.
Well, that
with
would
the
be
little
even
dongle.
then.
But
There's
there's a lot
millions of those.
those.
Yeah, right. I mean, you could do that. There's millions of those in the world.
Yeah.
You know,
And then you would have to
millions.
figure out a way to clean the data because there's going to be outliers.
And you could tell
people that plug
you
in
could-
bad results and they don't even fit in their ear right and things
Oh,
like
yeah,
that.
right.
Well, no, you just do the test first. You use the Apple one. You do the Apple test for seal and everything. All right, it has to make sure everything's right.
Right.
Then it can do the test.
Yeah.
And you also have to go and make sure your ears are cleaned out ahead of time. Otherwise, occasionally someone's going to have wax in one ear, not the other, and it's going to skew the
Well,
results.
you just throw that data out. You know, it's an
You
outlier.
got to figure out how to know that,
Yeah.
though.
Yeah, right.
How do you
That's
know which
true.
one's an outlier and which one's actually
You
good
could
data?
work on that, but that actually wouldn't be a bad way to go. That's assuming that all these mass-produced headphones are similar in nature. They're all sound the same because I don't know who the hell compares 6 Apple headphones. to see
Millions
if
of
they sound-
earbuds,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, I have no idea. I've never even tried more than one. Right?
I
So
think it's probably close enough to get good data.
probably.
but
Yeah.
I haven't done it.
Yeah. Right. So anyway, that wouldn't be a bad way to go. Where you tell the app, okay, I've got this headphone. You know
Yeah.
what it is. And you can use the data accordingly. So
That's possible,
it's a
but it sounds
possibility.
very, very complicated.
You're going to need a team of engineers.
You would
and
need
some time
teams
here.
of super mathy people
Yeah, agreed.
looking at walls of numbers,
Yeah.
matrix style.
Yeah, right.
yeah.
Like, oh, I see what you like. I got it.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
You like green.
That could
Well,
work.
no, you just have the computer do the heavy lifting.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, but you got to tell the computer how.
It's gotta
to do
start
that.
somewhere.
You tell it exactly
Yes.
what it would do with a lifetime supply.
That's
of
exactly
chocolate.
What's
what
that
I was going
IBM computer's name? We'll have it.
Watson?
Yeah, let's see if Watson can
Yeah.
figure that out. Hey, Watson, I got a couple numbers
I
for
don't know
you.
if it works
Like,
like that,
crunch
but we
this.
can get that figured out.
Anyway, obviously, as usual, we're starting to lose it again.
Get a little
But you know
carried
what?
away.
I think we were there. We were almost there. We almost got it figured out in 15 minutes or so. Think of what
Yeah,
we could
sort of.
think of what we could do in a year.
Sit here and think about it.
Yeah, wow.
Just start thinking for 2 years straight.
Yeah, right. Yeah, maybe at some point something will happen, but probably not. Obviously, this one's probably beyond us. That's why the 1266 is.
There you go.
Yeah, you figure it out. You adjust it the way you like
It's
it,
your problem now.
and then we don't have to do any of this stuff. Yeah, problem solved.
Maybe one day.
Maybe.
Maybe.
It sounds like a cool project to think about.
This sounds like a good job for a startup.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Like you said, some guy that has a
Some
shit ton of
significant
math.
experience.
Yeah. Doesn't know
Real
what to do with.
mathy.
Doesn't know what to do with it.
Just wants more numbers.
Yeah, right. And who's interested in audio? He likes listening
Yes.
to like live concerts or something.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, so done. So
We got
once
it all solved.
Well, yeah. All we got to do is find that guy, and we're good. Then we'll start working on it. All right. So on that note, everybody, thank you very much for watching, and please thumbs us up if you like this video, and take care of yourself.